Today we're going over Shizuka Penna's best top 5 white cards. Of course, as always, let me know what you guys think about this. Without further ado, let's get in. Starting at number 5, we have Rabble Rousing. 4 and a white for an enchantment with Hideaway 5. When this enchantment enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library, exile one of them face down, then put the rest of them on the bottom of the library in a random order. When you attack with one or more creatures, create that many 1/1 green and white citizen creature tokens. And if you control 10 or more creatures, you play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. I think this card is oddly strong. I feel like most of the time we've seen token generators, they've usually had a fixed amount. Either they create one, but there usually isn't a clause where it's like create that many additional creatures. And I think this is where it becomes strong. I think the initial investment required in a more aggressive deck is fairly low, seeing that most of your creatures sort of either generate value or have some sort of added benefit that swinging them all in and having their redundancy in your deck won't make that much difference if they do get blocked and attacked. Also, most people do tend to build a little more larger than they do wide in Commander, especially if we're playing in a higher level meta. And I think this is going to shine, even in lower power metals. Like, this is probably going to be not too popular going wide as it is going tall. This becomes really strong because you can just swing in and you get the additional benefit of creating more 1/1s. And of course, with those 1/1s, while most of them are going to be hitting, you can use them for whatever you want later. Whether it's like equipment, equipping, skull clamping, whatever, they stick around. I think that's really strong. And it doesn't really require 5 of them because you create 5 additional ones if you do swing with all 5 of those. And being like a low to the ground deck, and this could be like a top end, I think it could be really strong. I think this card does better when it does compare with like other Anthem effects. I know there's tons of that in white. I think this card would be really strong and maybe even make aggressive decks a little better in Commander. We'll see how it comes out, but I think this card is fairly strong by itself, and I'm definitely looking to play it in more aggressive decks to see how well it can push me forward and break past that 120 life barrier. Coming in at number 4 is Rumor Gatherer. 1 and a white for a creature elf wizard. With Alliance, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card instead. 2/1. I think this ability is really interesting. I know we have ways of drawing cards off of the first trigger, aka I think what's called Welcoming Vampire. Having this with Welcoming Vampire just means you're drawing cards for every 2 creatures, you're drawing 2 cards per turn. I think that's super strong, right? Because if creatures are replacing themselves and you're drawing an additional card each turn, this just means your hands are going to keep on getting bigger and bigger. And can you imagine that in an aggressive white deck? That's sort of what I'm thinking anyways. This card is pretty strong. The way it's worded, it means you scry 1, and then the second time this ability triggers, assuming nothing else happens, you draw a card. Then you keep scrying 1 after that. And I think for the most part, people can maybe say if I'm wrong or not, but if you scry enough, I think that's equivalent to virtual card advantage, knowing what you're getting next. So say you're dumping your hand out because you have so many cards in hand because you're playing mono white. Of course, why wouldn't you have so many cards in your hand? Scrying like 5 times in one turn, that's pretty strong. Assuming you only describe to what you need to get, or at least your next play. This comes like super great, right? Just knowing what you're going to be playing next. We all love that. We all love like the small mini tutor effect going on here. This is a strong card. I think this card will be played in aggressive decks in higher and lower power levels. I think the investment of playing 2 creatures isn't that rough, knowing that you do have to go down 1 card in order to get this effect. I think most of the time that's an okay cost there. It does mean you're over investing, say to like a board wipe or something like that, but the higher power level you're going, usually board wipes are a little more rare. But even at lower power levels, going wide probably isn't that bad, as I think most people do tend to go tall than wide. So swinging in after going wide enough isn't that bad. And hopefully your deck has enough redundancy that them removing one of the creatures that you did have to expend to the board won't be too rough because you have enough draw redundancy in your deck based off creature draw, ETB draws, something like that. And hopefully that all melts together. Even if you don't have that, in fact, like just the added benefit of this drawing a card and scrying once per creature in play, that's amazing. I think by itself makes it pretty honorable. And I think it's going to be played, I think, relatively a lot. I think this is going to be a pretty decent card. I'm curious if we played in Standard. I'm not quite sure if it's that strong. It might be a little too much because playing 2 cards in a row, you do net 1 card back. And maybe it isn't that bad. But for 3 mana, I don't think this is the sort of effect you want to play in Standard. And I hope I bite my words on this because it's really sweet that we get an Elf Wizard. That's pretty rare. And also the Mini Elephant. I like this card, especially the art. Tell me what you guys think about this. Coming in at number 3, Halo Fountain. 2 and a white for an artifact with 1 mana, tap, Untap a tapped creature you control. Create a 1/1 green and white citizen creature token. For 2 white, and tap and untap 2 tapped creatures you control. Draw a card. For 5 white, tap and then untap 15 tapped creatures you control. You win the game. Wow, this is a card with a lot of text that I think don't really surmount too much, but together maybe it becomes super good because of the value it can produce. So first off, thinking this just means you have, for 1 white, you can give a creature essentially vigilance, assuming that you're going in and you're attacking with a creature and you get to use this ability for 1 white, you untap that creature, so it's back in untapped state. You create a 1/1. Okay, for 1 mana, 1 white mana, where did you play that card? I don't know. I don't think making a vanilla 1/1 is that good in Commander, but I know there are a lot of cards, especially with the upcoming set, aka Streets of Capenna. This can become super strong because we have a lot of going wide strategies. Okay, that's fine. For 2 mana, you untap 2 tapped creatures. That is, you basically give 2 tapped creatures vigilance, and you draw a card. So that means essentially this sort of untap cost is benefiting us in a little bit because we do get to create sort of this defense at the end of benefit of also drawing a card. And we have a lot of artifacts that are just like 2 mana artifacts, draw a card. Is that worth it at playing for 3 mana? I don't think so. We have things like Endless Atlas, Sunset Pyramid, Maze Mind Tome. We have a bunch of these things. And having the restriction of needing 2 tapped creatures to draw a card, probably not the best, but seeing this is probably going in more go wide deck. Okay, maybe because it has another ability, it's probably worth it because of its modality. Okay, I'll give it to you. But at 15 tapped creatures, giving them vigilance, you win the game. That's probably a pipe dream. I think this card is probably going to be best when going wide, and because you can go wide and you get to do a lot with going wide, this becomes a lot better. And giving you more benefit, this also protecting you on the swing back is also probably going to be super strong. I think that'll be where it becomes the best, because once you go wide and you do actually invest a little more into those creatures that you're going wide with, say you add counters on them, you definitely do want to protect yourself with the swing back, just when people generally go taller, with like your more minor powered creatures. And because these are expendable, because you're just making them, you're going to be able to do this a lot, right? So I think this card becomes super strong in sort of this sort of toolboxy modality way, and I think that's where it's going to get. I don't think you're going to be able to untap with the 5 mana and untap, but hey, if that happens, kudos to you. You deserve to win. And you know, even if you're swinging with your 15 creatures, I think the fact that you were able to get here with this, it just might mean it's a little win more. I think if you're swinging with 15 creatures, I'm assuming they're probably going to be a little more than 1/1s, but I could be wrong if you're just going with this whole swing wide strategy. But the weird thing about that is it does require you to untap with those 15 creatures, because you do have to make sure they get untapped, right? So they have to be in an attacking state or a state that can tap them. Now there are ways of getting around this. You can use vehicles, and there are a lot of vehicles that do this, but that just speeds it up by 1 turn. And I really think that people are going to be able to interact with this before that will happen. I could be wrong though. I could be wrong. Maybe this card isn't as good as I'm thinking it is, but I do love the modality of this card, and there's a lot of play you can do with this card. I think that's where it becomes super sweet. Also, who doesn't love their janky 5 mana or 8 mana, and in this case, white plus a bunch of investment win con. We all like that. Jada, Font of Hope, coming at number 2. For 2 mana, create a legendary creature angel with flying vigilance. Each other angel you control enters the battlefield with additional +1/+1 counter on it for each angel you could already control. Tap, add a white, spend this mana only to cast an angel spell. 2/2. I think this is like really strong. I think if you want to go angel tribal, this is probably where you want to go. I could be wrong here. I've only had a few people who actually that I know that have ran around with angel decks. And I think the hard part about angel decks is getting to the angels, because they're pretty hefty in mana value. Then once you get there, you want to stabilize. And I think the easy thing about angels is that because a lot of them have like lifelink or some sort of protection, being in white, I think having them be bigger and being able to like sort of stabilize by themselves is going to be super strong with this effect, because they're getting bigger, and just by nature of being angels, they generally stabilize by themselves. This is going to be like a pretty good boost to them. I think you definitely play this over like a Lyra effect, and because it does have this weird Cathar's Crusade effect, it's going to be ending games a little sooner as well. And jumping from, I'm assuming you place on turn 3 to turn, say, 4 with 6 mana, just to cast angels, is going to be super strong. Now, I don't think it's going to be strong in more of a competitive sense, but in a more tribal sense, probably where you want to go with angels. I think having Vigilance and being able to block for whatever reason, especially like this being able to block early or block late, just having Vigilance is probably going to be great because you can just cast again because it's such a low mana value. And hey, it has Vigilance too, so if you have some sort of Anthem effect, it can attack, it can spend mana. I think most angels are probably going to be at sorcery speed though, so it's probably going to be tapped most of the time. I think this is great. This is probably a great angel, and probably we'll see play in all angel decks if I'm not mistaken. This is just a 2-mana mana dork that taps for mana to cast angel spells. Which I think is interesting. So I think most other angel mana dorks have just this cost reduction instead of adding mana to cast angels. Which I don't know if we can abuse that. I don't know if that's something we want to abuse. But hey, you can abuse it with something like Font of Hope, I guess. Oh wait, no you can't, because she has Vigilance. Anyways, this is a sweet card. I'm super interested in seeing how strong this makes angel decks go. What kind of angels this does replace. I think this becomes the commander, but I could be wrong here. Looks like a sweet card. Having it in the command zone, access this sort of effect early. I'm gonna be swung with angels a lot, and it's gonna hurt. And I'll see how that goes. Coming in at number 1, we have Extraction Specialist. 2 and a white for a creature human rogue with lifelink. When Extraction Specialist enters the battlefield, return target creature with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature can't block or attack as long as you control Extraction Specialist. 3/2. Now, hear me out. A 3/2 with lifelink, that's just begging to go into combat. Like, you want to get that lifelink so badly, you don't really particularly care too much that it blocks, because what you really want is the reanimation effect. And I think that's where this card is super strong. I think the fact that you can blink this with an ETB, and there's no weird cast trigger that Wizards have been doing lately, where it's like, oh, you have to cast this, and if you cast this, you get the benefit. This is simply ETB, return a creature, you get the creature that you want to return back. It can't block or attack as long as this is here, but that's fine, because all we're doing is using this for its effect, and I think that's super good. This card, I think, will be used and abused like no other. I think specifically in more lore meta pods, and maybe even higher pods, right? Like maybe this can get back some sort of value creature for 2 mana value. You've got like your Dark Confidants, you have your Robber the Riches, things like that, your Bobs. We all love those. 3 mana, get them back is nice. And hey, maybe you have like a low mana value commander. Just dump it to the grave, bring it back with this. Not that bad of an idea, I'm thinking. But also, if you're playing this, you're probably playing more Flicker effects, I'm assuming. Or you're probably playing more like Sun Titan effects. And think about that, right? Like, Sun Titan can bring this back for 3 mana. And imagine just like having it up as a blocker. You gain the life back. Okay, it dies, but like, who cares? But also, get the creature that it gets back. That's value. That's, instead of like 1 creature per turn, you're getting back 2 creatures per turn. And that's just good value. That's just good value. Now, it's not like a 3 mana divination, but I do think it's a good thing to use in abusing commander. And this is most definitely being played in like a lot of decks. I don't know particularly what kind of deck would want to play this, because 2 mana value is a low mana cost. And at that cost, I just assume you get a bunch of value creatures back, right? Like, there's not too many low mana value creatures that just are like super game ending, unless you're playing like I guess black or perhaps red, and that's probably where this goes in the sort of decks, just like the added benefit of reanimating things with a white creature that can also be recurred as well. That's strong. That's strong. That's super strong. And all you have to do is sack it, and then hey, if you really want to swing with that 2 mana value creature, you're fine. You're golden. That's great. And the best thing about this is, because the way it's worded, it only can't attack or block as long as you control the original ETB or creature that ETB'd, right? Once it sort of flickers in again, or once it dies, it's a new game object once it comes back. So you're gonna be able to use this often, right? This is an amazing card. I think this is like one of the better cards you've gotten in a while, because usually like the white reanimations have been sort of limited in the fact that they're relatively costly for their effect, and despite this being 3 mana sorcery speed, this is like super abusable. It's on a permanent, right? Yeah, this is a great card. This is an awesome card. I can't wait to play it. What do you guys think about this card? Let me know. That wraps up all my cards for the top 5. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you playing these cards? Do you guys agree with my list? What do you guys agree is going to be the best from New Streets Capenna for white? I'm thinking these cards are probably going to be somewhere, at least one of them are going to be somewhere in your top 10. But of course, I could be wrong here. Let me know in the comments below. Peace.